Stop. Before you let "I'm sorry" leave your lips one more time, hear this. You've been trained to confuse submission with strength. You were told that apologizing earns respect, that it proves character. But in the real world, the world of power, status, and human psychology, every unnecessary apology is a withdrawal from your credibility account. You are not buying goodwill. You are selling authority. If this already resonates, do two things so you don't lose this momentum. Subscribe for the rest of this series on psychological sovereignty. Like this video and comment. I own my power. Your comment is your public declaration and your first rep in a new habit. You've been living under a myth. Apology equals virtue. In polite society, that sounds noble. In human hierarchies, it is often read as permission to interrupt you, to overrule you, to place their comfort above your boundaries. Most people won't say this out loud, but they feel it. Chronic apologizers are easier to manage, easier to blame, easier to step around. That's not cruelty. It's the gravity of power. It flows toward whoever claims it and away from whoever surrenders it. Machiavelli's mirror. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli watched virtuous leaders apologize their reputations into dust while bolder, colder strategists stabilize entire states. His lesson wasn't be cruel. It was be conscious. Appearances dictate treatment, and signals shape outcomes. When you apologize reflexively, you're signaling two things. I consent to being the smaller presence here. I accept your frame that I am at fault, even if I'm not. What an unnecessary apology actually does in 3 levels. Body. Your posture folds. Your voice thins. Your gaze drops. Before words land, your body has already cast your vote. I yield. People respond to that vote within seconds. Story. Humans don't store events. We store narratives. They apologize becomes they're the one who messed up. 1 sorry is a dot. 3 become a pattern. A pattern becomes a brand. System. Groups optimize for ease. If you always apologize, you become the friction absorber. Meetings, families, teams quickly learn a shortcut. When tension rises, look to you for relief. Congratulations, you just became the designated scapegoat. Why it feels moral, but backfires. Apologizing feels like maturity because it reduces discomfort right now. But short-term soothing creates long-term consequences. You compress your presence. Other people expand into the space you abandoned, and the social map redraws with you on the margins. That piece you bought, it was purchased with invisibility. Strategic acknowledgement versus surrender apology. Strategic acknowledgement, brief, factual, forward-focused. Here's what happened. Here's what's next. No self-erasure. No plea for absolution. Surrender apology, vague, global, identity level. I'm sorry I'm such a problem. It invites others to define you, and they will. A simple diagnostic. Use this before any apology. Ask one question. Will this apology increase or decrease my leverage? If it clarifies a path forward while preserving your stature, acknowledge strategically. If it merely soothes them and shrinks you, hold your ground. Language upgrades. Keep these in your pocket. Instead of sorry for the delay, say, thank you for your patience. Here's the update. Instead of sorry, can I add something? Say, I'll add 1 point here. Instead of sorry, I disagree, say, I see it differently, here's why. Instead of sorry, I can't, say, that won't work for me. Here's an alternative. Presence protocol for moments of pressure. Posture. Feet grounded, shoulders back. Slow breath. Presence before words. Pace. Drop your speaking speed by 10 to 15%. Authority lives in unhurried cadence. Pitch. Finish sentences on a downward tone. No invisible question marks. Punchline. 1 clean sentence that sets a frame. Here's what I can do next. What about real mistakes? When you are at fault, over-apologizing still hurts you. The strongest formula is AAA. Acknowledge the specific impact, not your identity. That missed handoff delayed the team. Amend with concrete fix. I've added a checkpoint and owner to prevent repeats. Advance the conversation. We're back on timeline by Thursday. 1 sentence each. No groveling. Ownership without self-erasure. Why this matters more as you age. 45 to 70 focus. Your time, reputation, and energy compound or erode faster now. Every interaction either deposits authority or withdraws it. Eliminating reflex apologies is the quickest way to stop the leaks and reclaim the quiet confidence you've earned. Your first micro-win, do this today. Replace one habitual sorry with a thank you or clear boundary. Feel the difference in your body. Watch the difference in the room. Your new baseline. You don't owe the world a constant apology for existing. You owe yourself a posture that matches your value. Power, respect, certainty. Certainty begins with language, and your language starts with what you refuse to surrender. Mini CTA to lock the habit. If you're ready to replace reflex apology with strategic ownership, subscribe now, like this video to reinforce the message, and comment, I own my power. Next, we'll expose how apologies erase your presence and how to rebuild it so people feel you before you even speak. Every time you say, I'm sorry, when you don't need to, something inside you quietly dies. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's real. Your presence, your confidence, your energy fade a little more each time. You think you're being polite. You think you're being kind. But what you're really doing is erasing yourself in the room. And the older you get, the more permanent that erasure becomes. Because people stop seeing you and start remembering only how small you made yourself. The physical death of presence. Watch your body the next time you apologize. Your shoulders curl forward. Your spine bows. Your chest caves in. Your eyes dart away. Your voice loses color. You literally shrink. It's not just posture, it's a declaration. Your body is sending a message long before your words do. I don't belong here. My existence takes up too much space. And people hear that message even if they don't realize it. They see your shrinking energy, and their subconscious interprets it as permission to overlook you, interrupt you, dismiss you. The tragedy is, it's not because they're cruel. It's because power is always claimed, never given. How power actually works. In every room, in every conversation, there's a silent negotiation happening, an unspoken agreement about who gets to take up space. The world is full of people who expand, who speak louder, who claim attention. And while they push outward, you pull inward. You make yourself small to keep peace. But here's the truth. Every time you apologize unnecessarily, you're not keeping peace. You're surrendering territory. You're handing over your share of presence in that space. You're saying, here, take my place. I wasn't sure I deserved it anyway. That's why you feel invisible. Because in a world full of people fighting to be seen, you're the one handing out invisibility cloaks and wearing one yourself. Machiavelli's law of visibility. Niccolò Machiavelli, centuries ago, noticed a strange pattern. The kindest leaders, the ones who constantly apologize, were the first to lose everything. Not because kindness is weakness, but because apology without authority turns kindness into a liability. He wrote, since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose, it is safer to be feared than loved. Now, he wasn't talking about cruelty. He was talking about respect. When you're loved without respect, you're pitted. When you're respected, even slightly feared, you're remembered. So you have a choice. Be loved for being agreeable or be respected for being unshakable. The subtle psychology of disappearance. People respond to emotional signals faster than to logic. Every I'm sorry teaches others something about you. It tells them you yield easily. It tells them you'll take the blame to keep harmony. It tells them you can be bypassed. And the mind of every person around you stores that data line by line until it becomes a definition. You're the one who backs down. That's why they talk over you. That's why they take credit for your ideas. That's why your presence in a room barely moves the air, because you've trained them to believe you're not a force. But footnote, the cost of being too considerate. When you constantly apologize, you think you're being good-hearted. But what you're really doing is building a world where your kindness is exploited instead of valued. People stop seeing your good intentions and only see the ease with which they can step around you. That's not humility. It's self-erasure disguised as virtue. True humility is knowing your worth and not needing to prove it. False humility is apologizing for having it, reclaiming the space that's already yours. You don't need to roar to command attention. You simply need to stop apologizing for breathing. You have as much right to occupy space, to speak, to exist fully as anyone else in that room. Maybe more because you spent a lifetime earning it. When you stop apologizing for your presence, people will feel the shift. They'll look up when you speak. They'll pause before interrupting. They'll feel your weight in the room, even in silence. That's not arrogance. That's equilibrium being restored. Practical reversal technique. Next time you feel the urge to say, "I'm sorry" for something trivial, replace it with one of these. "Thank you for your patience. I appreciate your understanding. Let's continue from here." These aren't tricks, they're boundary markers. You're training both yourself and others to interact with you on equal footing. Reflection for the viewer. Think back to the last time someone dismissed your opinion, ignored your idea, or spoke over you. Now ask yourself, did you apologize before it happened? If you did, you didn't just lose the conversation. You lost your presence before the conversation even began. If this message resonates, comment below, "Fire, I claim my space." Let those words anchor in your mind. You'll spend a lifetime giving away presence. You can spend the rest of it reclaiming it. And stay with me, because in the next part, we'll uncover the psychological hunger your apologies create in others and how to break that cycle before it consumes you. Every apology has a hidden cost. You think you're restoring peace, but in reality, you're feeding a cycle of dependence that grows stronger every time you say, "I'm sorry." What starts as a moment of politeness becomes a pattern of submission, and that pattern creates addicts, records, and magnets. In this chapter, you're going to see the three faces of that trap. The hunger loop, how your apologies create psychological addiction in others. The permanent record, how every sorry becomes evidence against you. The blame magnet effect, how you become the automatic target of guilt. The hunger loop, feeding the addiction to your submission. Let's start with something brutally honest. When you apologize, you don't give peace. You give someone a taste of power. Imagine handing them a small spark of dominance, a feeling of elevation. Their brain lights up with dopamine, the same chemical rush triggered by victory, money, or applause. They feel a surge of superiority. It feels good. That single moment of pleasure becomes a reward loop. You apologize, they feel power. Their brain says, "Do that again." Now, they subconsciously start looking for more opportunities to relive that feeling. They get offended more easily. They nitpick your words. They exaggerate your mistakes. Not because they hate you, but because you've taught their brain that your apology equals their high. They become addicted to your submission, and you become the drug. Every unnecessary apology reinforces their craving. Soon, peacekeeping turns into power feeding, and you're the supplier. The more you give, the more they demand. The cycle becomes endless. And here's the twisted part. You start believing you're the problem. You start thinking, "I must be messing up a lot." No, you just trained the world to expect your submission as a source of satisfaction. Psychological truth. People don't crave fairness. They crave control. Your apologies give it to them on a silver platter. So when you stop apologizing, don't be surprised if they get angry. Addicts hate withdrawal. They'll accuse you of changing, of becoming cold or selfish. But what's really happening is simple. You stop being their emotional supplier. That discomfort they feel, it's not your guilt. It's their detox. Affirmation, I star weakness. You do not exist to feed someone else's sense of power. The permanent record, every sorry is evidence. Now let's move to the second face of this trap. The invisible record that your apologies create in people's minds. You might think your sorry disappears after it's said. It doesn't. It gets archived, stored in memory as proof of your imperfection. Each apology becomes a line in your personal file labeled unreliable. Here's the cognitive bias at play. Humans don't remember isolated events. They remember patterns. You apologize once for being late. Fine. Twice, noticeable. 3 times. And suddenly you're the person who's always late. It doesn't matter if you were on time 99% of the time. That 1% because it carried emotional weight, becomes a story that defines you. Worse still, the record compounds. Apologize for a mistake at work, for saying the wrong thing, for inconveniencing someone, and soon all those apologies merge into one big identity. They're always messing up. You built that record with your own words, not because you were wrong, but because you were too quick to kneel. Meanwhile, others who never apologize, their record stays spotless. Even when they fail, their silence rewrites perception. People interpret their lack of apology as confidence, competence, importance. That's the double standard of social psychology. The unapologetic are seen as strong. The apologetic are seen as guilty. Machiavelli predicted this centuries ago when he wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." If your appearance is constant apology, the truth of your capability becomes irrelevant. You'll be judged not by your performance, but by your posture. From this moment on, understand, every apology is a permanent entry in your public ledger. Every sorry adds another page to the story that you're the problem. The solution? Stop contributing to the narrative. Don't add another sentence to the book of your own submission. Affirmation: I rewrite my story. The blame magnet effect: how you become the default scapegoat. Here's where it all comes together. After you fed their hunger and built your record, something dangerous happens. You become the magnet for blame. Humans have an instinctive need to assign responsibility when things go wrong. The moment tension appears, the group mind looks for the easiest target. And who fits that role perfectly? The person who's always ready to say, "I'm sorry." You've trained everyone around you, friends, co-workers, even family, that when conflict arises, you'll take the hit, you'll shoulder the guilt, you'll smooth things over, so they stop even questioning it. You become the path of least resistance for accountability. And like water flowing downhill, blame always follows the easiest path. The irony? The more you take responsibility, the more responsibility finds you, even when it's not yours, even when you had nothing to do with it, because people begin to assume if they're always apologizing, they must always be the problem. Correlation becomes causation in their minds. So you carry everyone's guilt while they carry none. You take the emotional labor for the entire room, quietly, gracefully, destructively, the vicious circle. You apologize, they feel relief. They start expecting you to always do it. You become the emotional cushion for everyone's mistakes. You burn out, resentful and unseen. Then one day you stop, you go silent. You finally hold your ground. And suddenly, they accuse you of changing. They say you're cold, distant, selfish. No, you're just done being their scapegoat in disguise. Breaking the pattern will trigger resistance. But it's necessary because your peace cannot coexist with everyone else's dependence on your guilt. When you stop apologizing for things you didn't cause, something extraordinary happens. People start confronting their own behavior. They start noticing the chaos they used to dump on you. Some won't like it, but the right ones will finally respect it. Affirmation: I deflect blame. In summary, every sorry feeds a hunger that grows. Every sorry builds a record that brands you. Every sorry paints a target on your back. If you want to reclaim your power, stop fueling the addiction. Stop contributing to your own indictment. Stop volunteering for guilt that doesn't belong to you. Because the truth is simple. The world doesn't respect the one who apologizes the most. It respects the one who knows when not to. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into forgiveness trap. How even "I forgive you" can be a weapon disguised as grace. And how your endless apologies are extinguishing the fire inside you that once made you powerful. There's a lie buried deep in the heart of our social conditioning. The belief that forgiveness sets us free. You've been taught that when you say "I'm sorry" and someone says "I forgive you," the story is over. That's what movies show, what religion preaches, what polite society expects. But in real human psychology, that phrase, "I forgive you," is often not the end. It's the beginning of a trap that collects your apologies like currency, stores them like ammunition, and waits for the perfect moment to use them against you. The forgiveness trap when mercy becomes a weapon. Let's be brutally honest. Most people don't forgive to release you. They forgive to own you. They keep your apology in a mental vault, perfectly labeled, perfectly dated, waiting for the next conflict. When that day comes, and it always does, the vault opens, and out comes your past submission. Remember when you apologize for that? You always do this. You said you'd change, but here we are again. That's not forgiveness. That emotional blackmail wearing a halo. What you thought was peace was just a truce, a silence held in place by guilt. You think the storm has passed, but the clouds were never gone. They were just waiting for the next flash of lightning to justify raining on you again. You thought you buried the issue. They simply filed it under leverage. The psychological cost, turning accountability into chains. Apology is supposed to mean acknowledgement, but when used by the wrong people, it becomes evidence of permanent guilt. Each time you apologize, you're adding another link to a chain that tethers you to your past mistakes. It doesn't matter that you've grown, that you've learned, that you've changed. Because in their narrative, you're still the same person who once said, "I'm sorry." They hold your past over your head like a sword, subtle, silent, but always there. And here's the cruel part. The more genuine your remorse, the tighter that chain wraps around you. This is why you find yourself saying, "I don't know what else to do," or "Why do they always bring that up?" It's because your apologies didn't set you free. They built a paper trail of guilt that others now weaponize to keep you small. The death of inner fire. How constant apology kills your spirit. There's something even darker than being controlled by others. It's when you start to control yourself on their behalf. Every time you apologize unnecessarily, you teach your brain a devastating belief. I am the problem. You're programming your subconscious to associate your existence with fault. So you start to shrink before you even speak. You hesitate before you act. You silence yourself before anyone else can. That's not humility. That's self-erasure. Over time, your inner fire, that quiet force that once pushed you to stand tall, speak boldly, live fully, begins to fade. Not because life broke you, but because you kept dimming your own flame to make others comfortable. You stop trusting your instincts. You start overthinking every move. You begin to apologize for things you haven't even done yet. Your energy becomes timid. Your decisions become hesitant. Your presence becomes ghostly. You are alive, but only technically. Your body walks into rooms, but your power doesn't follow. That's the final stage of the apology addiction. You apologize yourself into invisibility, reigniting the flame, the path back to power. Here's the truth they never tell you. You can rebuild your fire. But it starts with refusing to apologize for existing. It starts with catching yourself the moment you feel the reflex, that urge to say, "I'm sorry," when you did nothing wrong. Pause. Breathe. Replace the reflex with presence. Stand tall. Hold eye contact. Say nothing. The silence will feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is not weakness. It's the feeling of power returning to your body. Every time you resist the urge to apologize, your confidence flickers back to life. Every time you speak without softening your truth, your flame grows stronger. Every time you hold your ground when someone tries to guilt you, you reclaim another piece of your power. This is not arrogance. This is healing. You're not becoming hard. You're becoming whole again. The Machiavellian truth of renewal. Machiavelli once said, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great." Your willingness to please, to apologize, to keep harmony, that willingness made your life harder than it ever needed to be. But if you redirect that same willingness towards self-respect, the difficulty vanishes. Because power isn't about dominating others. It's about refusing to be dominated by guilt. It's about learning to live without the constant need for forgiveness. Forgiveness should never be a leash. It should be a bridge, one that both sides walk across. If you're the only one walking, you're not crossing a bridge. You're stepping into a trap. Sparkle's your turning point. Right now, decide that your past apologies are done haunting you. You've acknowledged your humanity. You've made peace with your imperfection. Now it's time to reclaim what those constant apologies stole. Your dignity, your strength, your fire. Say out loud right now, I refuse the trap. I reignite my fire. Feel what those words do inside you. They shift your center. They rebuild your spine. They remind you that you were never meant to crawl through life on your knees, begging for acceptance. You were meant to stand, to breathe, to burn brightly. Stay with me. In the next chapter, you'll learn how the most powerful weapon in human interaction isn't words at all. It's strategic silence. And when you master it, you'll never need to apologize again.